This is already a true world-class city, a glimmering, shining, vibrant, high-rise, amazing restaurants. The economy is on a tear. GDP growth is surging. Visitor numbers are soaring. Foreigners are being attracted here. And yet we can still buy a luxury condo in a leafy neighborhood from as little as $235,000. Hey, Ciaran.
Hey Ronan, well, I'm excited today. We're going to talk about one of my favorite places in the world. Dying to dig in.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the glimmering, shining, vibrant Panama City. We're going to talk about the incredible real estate values we can get there. We're going to look at some specific listings, but most importantly, Ciaran, we're going to drill in on what is the big opportunity in Panama today and what is the big opportunity being created by this kind of quirky mix of booming economy, fast growing demand, and yet prices that are just not where they should be, that just do not reflect the underlying value of this city.
Yeah, I mean, Panama is such an incredible place. One of these like truly great, like booming world cities. But like the numbers we're seeing coming out of Panama at the moment are like absolutely spectacular. And I don't think is like being fully reported just the scale of the boom there. GDP growth in the first quarter, 4.8%, one of the highest in Latin America. Visitor numbers up 17%, tourism numbers. Numbers to the airport up 15% in the first half of this year. I mean, this is an incredible boom to an already very strong economy.
Yeah, this is sneaky stealth powerhouse stuff. And Ciaran, this moment, it just reminds me of that kind of 2000 and 2009, 10 period when Panama's growth was also heading towards the 8% level. So this is a little country that's shown China levels of growth over a couple of decades, but yet has avoided, just a mega real estate bubble that continues to attract people and foreign investment. So, we compare Panama in a gentle way to, some of those Asian mega cities, which you're very familiar with Dubai, which again, Dubai and all of these are bad comparisons, but maybe a kind of an interesting place to start.
Yeah, interesting place to start. In a minute, I'd love to hear, you're going to Panama City since the early mid-2000s. I can only imagine how different it was then. My perspective on Panama is kind of interesting because as you know, Ronan, I spent a long time living in the Far East, in East Asia, in Taiwan in particular. And like my first impression when I got to Panama, I think I first visited, I can't remember, maybe it's 3 or 4 years ago now. And it was almost like being back in one of those cities, have this incredible scale of development. You can feel almost the energy of the place as it's moving and evolving. And you still have the kind of like little bit of the chaotic development because the place has grown so fast, come so far so quickly. So it really reminded me of living in a place like Taipei or visiting those cities in China, because you can kind of see immediately, you can feel the kind of energy, the dynamism of the place, how quickly it's moving and how confident the people are in the future of their country. That's also like when I was there and we were talking to some of our contacts, you can just see it on people's faces. They just have this bright optimism about the future of their country. They know where it's going.
Yeah, it's the we got it, and it's solid and it's backed by reality and it's also very consensus based, I mean, that's the thing about these little countries. They can be very, very clear about what they're about. And, Panama is about trade. It's about being an international destination. It's about attracting, the global mobile capital and companies. But the Panama I arrived in back 22, 23 years ago was a very, very different thing, Ciaran. In those early days, I remember Casco Viejo, the old town, being these smoky jazz clubs. It was very, the Taylor of Panama. It was very kind of post-colonial, sleepy, gin and tonics, kind of vibes almost of, I would say, the Cambodia I found 10 years ago, which also had that kind of post-colonial luxury hotels, sleepy vibe. And the city back then, there was still a high rise, but interesting quirks about the high rise. I would stay in, I guess it was the Intercontinental. I think it was the Intercontinental Miramar. And I remember back then you could stay there, or the Bristol, which was an amazing luxury hotel from 80 to $100. There were very few hotels, but they were very luxurious and very affordable. And, the first condos I bought were also in that same area around the Intercontinental, which was the whole Avenida Balboa and Bayfront area. And that was the first area where foreign investment came. And interestingly, Ciaran, when we talk about how Panama has transformed, today those bayfront condos, they ain't so bayfront anymore because the city has reclaimed the land in front to expand the road network, but also to build parks and outdoor spaces. So, it's really noteworthy. Panama didn't reclaim land just to build, road infrastructure. They didn't reclaim land just to build parks. They built it to, accommodate broader interests like leisure, like the nuts and bolts of moving around. And today, too, the Casco Viejo is a very, very different thing. You've a Sofitel, you have luxury hotels that, while on a global basis, are still really, really affordable. If you want a luxury city break, I mean, Casco Viejo is now incredible. You can stay in the Sofitel for $300-400 a night. The equivalent in another world city is going to be 3 or 4 times that. The food is amazing. The walkability. You jump in a taxi or an Uber, and you're in the glimmering high rise. You're in the shopping. Panama has truly grown up as a destination, as a place to live, and just as a true world city.
Yeah, incredible. Like, it's one of those places, it just feels completely unafraid, as you say, to do the big things. You know what I mean? It has that self-confidence, like third canal lane that it added, cost of billions, new bridge over the canal, cost of billions. We were just commenting when we were Metro, only one in Central America, again, continuously expanding it, new hospital, new children, big hospital there. Like, I mean, they're just constantly doing.
Well, this story, Ciaran, like, I mean, I just had to text all my friends in Ireland when I heard this. So with friends of ours, I was standing on the island. So there are these man-made islands built right in front of the city of Panama. We're going to talk about listings there in a minute. But a friend pointed across the skyline and said, "There's our new children's hospital." And it's just this beautiful, glimmering, high-rise tower in the distance. And I turned to them both and I said, how long did it take to plan and build that from the get-go? And they kind of looked at each other and they said, maybe 18 months. And then, no, there was a planning phase before that, maybe 2 to 3 years. Which, Ciaran, we are from a country where I'm tuned out of the news here about how long does it take to build a children's hospital here in Ireland? 40 years, 50 years?
Yeah, something like that. One of the most expensive projects in history, right? This project, if you can look it up online, it's incredible. Like, as a structure, as a hospital, it's like cost Ireland billions, and just legal issues, cost overruns, everything's so hard, so hard to do. And then the equivalent to Panama, 18 months, 2 years, we get it up. Just a country that's moving, right?
They can push forward. And again, it's not at the expense of, trampling other people's interests. There's a fine line. It's interesting, we're going to talk about Ireland in one of our upcoming live events as a canary in the coal mine for folks who are in other places about how being a landlord, owning real estate can just become prohibitive from a regulatory and a tax basis. And when that happens, we just move on. But Panama is brave. Also in that time, they've built essentially, not just one, but two new mini cities. In my time being in Panama, the whole Costa del Este area has been created, and this is a whole new, essentially mini city on the edge of the city, planned and custom built for living, for recreation, and most importantly, for the infrastructure, the office and business infrastructure that global multinationals want and need. And this is the main driver of Panama. It's as a platform and as a base for global corporations to put people and to put operations.
Yeah, and to bring it back to like the opportunity for people, in Panama, like if you're looking for a world-class city to live in, if you like the tropical climate, you're looking for a world-class city that has everything. I mean, Panama, personally, for me, would be at or near the very top of the list of the places I would go. It's just got that city vibe, like the best, best malls, cinemas, anything you could imagine you'll find in Panama City. And if you're interested in investment, like the fact that Panama draws these corporations from around the world, it's creating such an incredible environment. Like you can see the way the economy is growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this thing, as you say, the why we care about all these corporations coming, it's not like a skyline with big four consulting firms and big pharma. It's, we care because that's creating a real estate opportunity that we're going to dig into. But also from a lifestyle perspective, for me, one of the most incredible things about being in Panama City is that within an hour, I can be on Robinson Crusoe Islands in the Pearl Islands, maybe a bit more than an hour by boat. If you're lucky enough to have a friend with a helicopter, it's just 15 or 20 minutes. Or if you hop on one of the local flights, it's only 15 or 20 minutes, and you just walk up and you get on them like a bus, and it's absolutely incredible. It's like landing on an aircraft carrier with these pristine white sand beaches and tropical islands. So you can hop on a little local flight and be right across Panama. You can hop on a boat or a little flight to get out to the Pearl Islands. Or you can just jump in your car and be at incredible beaches within just an hour. So this is like, it has all these pieces, luxury shopping, luxury dining, great local dining, just very, very vibrant scene, world-class healthcare, just world-class everywhere. And again, one of the quirks of Panama, whenever things go sideways or weird in the world, stuff starts flooding into Panama. The genesis of a lot of this medical tourism and medical infrastructure was after 9/11. It became trickier for people from some Latin countries to get to the States. So instead of going to Miami for a procedure, it just became easier to go to Panama. So, things diverted there. When things started going haywire in Venezuela, people and capital moved in. The first kind of wave of Venezuela problems, 2008 to 2010, so a big influx that was followed by uncertainty in Colombia. Colombians moved in. So over time, by stealth, Panama has just sucked in all this trade and commerce, and it has just grown. Back when Panama got its independence and back when the canal was being handed back to Panama, the word is, oh, the Panamanians won't know how to manage it. But, they certainly have been incredible custodians of it. And, really just
Mm-hmm.
built a major world city around that.
Yeah, I mean the comparisons. We talked about it. You talked about it as being on a Singapore style kind of growth trajectory. I think when you go there and even anyone I know who's been there and has not been familiar with what Panama is, immediately gets it when you get on the ground there, because you can see the pathway where it's going, underpinned by this incredible economy with the canal at the heart of it. It's just so much potential and so many interesting ways to play it, because as you were saying at the top, Ronan, you can still buy in this city for under $250,000 for like wonderful apartments in some of the best areas of town, which is like wild.
Absolutely. And, this is, I wanted to be very conscious when we're picking, I mean, you can buy for even less, we're talking about in the low 200s, you can buy a very comfortable condo, fully furnished, new building, so you don't have kind of legacy issues around whether there's issues with the building, great amenities, gym, pools, walk out your door and being in a vibrant living and entertainment district. So the real estate values just in no way reflect where Panama is as a global city. And that's creating a really, really big opportunity to buy now, enjoy solid rental income, our personal use. Again, a big part of what we do here is, your first step is to profile yourself. And if you're exploring Panama and real estate in Panama, the first question is, why am I doing this? Is it for rental income or capital appreciation, or because I want to be there, or a combination of all these things? But no matter what you're in it for, the potential for medium term, strong, stable, solid capital appreciation is really, really strong. The rental market is robust. You can rent to these global multinational corporations. I mean, it can be a Pfizer or an Ernst and Young sending you the rent check, and the prices on a per foot basis are, they're pretty much just a third or a quarter of what you would pay in other world cities. Now, again, I just want to be very careful. I'm
Yeah.
not saying Panama is yet at the level of a Hong Kong or a Singapore. It's on that trajectory. So I'm not making an apples and apples comparison, but these data points where we can look at condos that cost $250 dollars per square foot, that's a price point that's just you're just not going to see in other world cities.
Absolutely not. So maybe we start to show people some communities, some listings, Ronan. Like, I mean, so we're going to start, I guess we picked out some different things, different price points, different levels of luxury, right? We're going to start right at the top, at the very, very height of luxury. Now, I want to hear you tell me this story, because we're going to talk about the islands, which are one of the most incredible communities I've ever toured. And you remember, Ronan, when they were nothing but a dream in a guy's head and a bunch of rocks in a bay. So I'd like to hear.
I remember when they were someone's dream, and then it failed, and then it was an international group tried to develop them. Then a major local Panamanian developer called Grupo Los Pueblos came in and revived the project and the vision. And I remember being there for several years, and kind of people would kind of be rolling their eyes. They'd be saying, those are Alfredo's piles of rocks in the Bay of Panama. So, the developer Alfredo is a long-standing friend and contact of ours here. And, it was just a hugely ambitious project where just over years, they just dredged, piled up rocks and just did all this complicated engineering. And, there were a lot of people very skeptical for the longest time. And also the moment they chose to revise this project was post crisis. So, another very interesting quirk about Panama is, in the great international real estate bubble, the run up to 2008, lots of international groups came into Panama with highfalutin ideas. Many of them failed. And then Panama, and Panama's business community and entrepreneurs picked up those projects and ran with them over time, bought them at bargain basement prices. But what Alfredo has created here with these islands is just truly exceptional. You drive across a bridge from the city high rise. So you're in the city, you're in the heart of the high rise. You drive through a couple of buildings. If you didn't know, you wouldn't even know there was an entrance to something, across a bridge, and just into these two private islands, separated only by water and a luxury marina. So you're sitting in a home or a condo here, and you're just true waterfront right in the heart of Panama City. I know of no other real estate like it, where you get the tranquility, where you get to play tennis or paddle in an outside court on a private island with this glimmering high rise and water all around. It's truly spectacular. And Ciaran, prices here, they're not low, but they're certainly, by global standards, not high at all. I mean, you can buy
No.
luxury here from $600 per square foot.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, such an incredible place to visit. I think, James Bond real estate. I think, you wrote about it as like it's the kind of community for people like who international CEOs report to. You know what I mean? It's that kind of place. It reminds me of like something. It's a very Dubai-esque. Like if you're not familiar with Panama, as I wasn't the first time I went there, and I crossed over onto the islands, and you think, where am I? This is such an incredible place. Helipads, this mega yacht marina, these absolutely stunning communities. But this is kind of the level that Panama's operating at. This is just such a stunning community, and people pay $6,000-7,000 a month to rent condos on this island. Like, I mean, it is an incredible community. You were recommending condos on this island, Ronan, when people could buy them for under 800, and now prices. I think we picked out a listing here. Prices are 1.3, I think, for a 3-bed condo. So, but even at that, that's obviously a very substantial sticker price. But for what you're owning, like this is the most elite community in the region.
Absolutely. I mean, to buy this type of condo at that kind of $1.2-1.3 million range, it just, represents just exceptional long-term value. Almost no one is going to sell a condo like this. As you mentioned, these are bases for families. Maybe you've a family office based out of Panama. Maybe you're downsizing from a luxury home. There is not going to be a lot of liquidity. And by that, I mean in the good way. There's not going to be availability. And, Ciaran, great. A lot of our VIP members were able to buy these condos a few years back from, under $850,000. But that's not a reason to be disappointed, because I believe the next 10 years with real estate like this in Panama are going to be as good as what our members have experienced over the previous 10 years. So, if anything, this is a lower risk moment to get in.
And one thing that always strikes me about the islands, the fact that somebody had to build land in the Bay of Panama. They had to build these private islands, speaks to the kind of the land squeeze that's happening around Panama City, that's kind of trapping real estate there in its uptrend, right? I mean, you had to build islands.
Great point, Ciaran. And to layer on to that, no one is ever going to build other islands in the Bay of Panama. I mean,
certainly after talking to Alfredo, he's never doing it again.
Every time I go with Alfredo, I point at the sea and I say, next island. And no, these islands, I think, are, among his proudest work, but never again, never again for such a range of reasons. The engineering complexity, again, it's going to be more complex from a regulatory basis, making the business work, the long-term funding. This will just not be replicated. And to your point, the only reason you have to put that incredible amount of money to creating land is, there's just a shortage of best in class land central in the heart of Panama City for this new development to go.
Absolutely. We might jump now, Ronan, to maybe talk about a place where we're having our next meetup for our private members of our real estate tenant group. That's Santa Maria. So 350 of our members are going to be meeting at the beautiful Santa Maria luxury Marriott Luxury Correction Hotel there next February. But it's a place we know well, Santa Maria. But what an incredible community, and it's this massive private reserve of luxury right beside Costa del Este, which is where all the multinational corporations are based in Panama. Right beside that brand new area, this brand new city they built towards the airport, Costa del Este. There's this 500-acre, incredible, lush green Jack Nicklaus golf courses, essentially private reserve. Absolutely stunning place. And I'm always shocked by real estate values there. You can buy there from surprisingly low prices considering what you're getting.
Yeah, this is insane, to be able to buy a condo like this from the mid 300s. This is a building I'm very familiar with. It's got this really vibrant, kind of trendy downstairs area with games room. You have rooftop amenities. You have paddle, you have gym, you have a whole kind of club, leisure club, exercise, social club within the building. And then the building is part of this broader community where, whenever I spend time there, because, Ciaran, as you know, I'm a big golfer and I just love being around golf, and I just love to sit around in front of the hotel. But there's the driving range in front, and at night it's all floodlit, and you've got the high rise of Santa Maria all around, but you've got green, you've got space, you've got pools. Just walk through the hotel and you're in this I was going to call it posh strip mall. I don't know what the technical term for that is, but a very kind of
nails it.
upmarket with, great restaurants, cafes, bars, food stores, Pilates studios, just real kind of country club comfort living, and at price points that are just truly exceptional, that you're just not going to get in a location like this in a world-class city.
Yeah, I mean, sub 400,000 to live in a building with those kind of amenities. And then on the coast of Costa del Este, which Costa del Este was that master plan district built by Panama City to attract global corporations. And you see all the global corporations with bases there. Samsung and all these regional headquarters are there. But Costa del Este is also just a very cool place to spend time. It has great restaurants, great shopping. It has great bars, great cafes. So it's a lovely district to be in as well. And then it's on your doorstep,
Yeah,
so it's incredible.
International schools. And again, there's a number of big things underpinning all of this when we talk about corporations coming in, when we talk about international schools. This is one of the most friendly places on earth to set up a corporation, to get residency, to perform all sorts of international business activities, because Panama runs off a territorial tax system. So Panama is only going to tax you on things you do in Panama. And again, there's not tax advice, all those usual caveats. But if you're in Panama with an international business, Panama only cares about stuff you do within Panama. So it can be a very, very important part of a mobile international persons, tax planning. Very easy to get residency. I got residency there a number of years ago. Just went through the process with my lawyer. Very, very straightforward. Again, these things can take a bit of time and maybe need a bit of patience, so you need to be out ahead of them. But it was a very modest price. And I think, Ciaran, I got in on the basis of the Friendly Nations residency. So I know that was exactly 10 years ago, because I was just looking at my residency card the other day and I see it's up at the tail end of this year. So I'll need to go and renew that.
Well, no hardship to have to visit Panama.
Exactly. I'm overdue a long weekend in Casco Viejo, followed by two or three days chilling on Isla Contadora. Ciaran, at this point, one quick note about renting in Panama.
Yes.
Very important for everyone to know. You can't rent short term within Panama City unless the building falls under a very specific kind of condo hotel designation. So very, very important to understand that. My preference for the Panama rental play is to buy best-in-class condos in places like Santa Maria, rent them to that long-term corporate market. That's where you'll get the biggest yields. You'll also retain control over your condo. Whereas if you go with some of those touristic licensed condo hotel ones, you're really at the behest of the success of that management company. So again, very important to know before pulling the trigger on Panama.
Yeah, absolutely. Vital point. Ronan, you picked out one more listing, I think. So a listing for 235. Like, again, incredible. Looks like a very, very lovely apartment, very comfortable, that will give you access to this lifestyle. You want to just talk us through it quickly?
Yeah. Listen, Ciaran, every unit that I pulled for this are in buildings I know, developer I know, solid track record, great locations. And this is just a really, really nice condo building, nice amenities, pool, gym, on a main artery in and out of the city. So great for connectivity with the airport, great for a straight shot across town to Casco Viejo, and also in a very nice kind of mixed area. By mixed, I mean a mix between high-rise residential and older homes, restaurants, very livable, walkable, really nice place to be, and a condo like that from like $230,000. Just absolutely incredible. You couldn't build that condo today for double that in pretty much every other global city. So what this means is, as more demand comes, as these trends driving Panama just continue to compound, just those values are going to tick up and up and up over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think before we sign off, Ron, there's one more place I'd like to quickly touch on, and that's kind of what is essentially become the beach for Panama City. So like we were talking about communities there that are towards the airport, you know what I mean? On that side of the city, there's kind of a crunch on land happening on that side of the city. And then you look at the other side, which is where the bridges go over the canal and go down towards Punta Chame. And that's kind of where the beaches for Panama City are. People cross the Bridge of the Americas. They go down that side of the coast to go to the beaches on the weekend. And there's a very interesting community bed down there that you've been talking about for quite a while. That's called Playa Caracol. And it's very interesting because that's the closest, nicest beach to Panama City, which is kind of a weird thing. But there are beaches closer, but they're silty, or they're brown sand. This is like a beautiful, beautiful beach set on this peninsula, the closest to Panama City, but it went undeveloped for a really long time because of complex reasons about land ownership and things. But now the same developer who put together the islands, is putting together a beachfront community there. Roland, you've recommended a bunch of real estate there. I've stayed there several times, and it's really just cool. It's a cool place to be because it's one of these places where you can just have a condo that's literally right on the sand. Like, open your curtains, ocean, like to the horizon, downstairs, out the door, on the sand, and then you have Panama City like an hour, 90 minutes away. That's just so cool.
Yeah, just you said it, Ciaran. True beachfront, resort community with hotels, restaurants, surf clubs, with all these kind of amenities being built up all around. You know, it's a total quirk that development moved right along Panama's Pacific coast. It leapfrogged this area, and then this developer was able to put together a complex package of bringing the infrastructure from the road to the beach, as well as getting the permits and putting it all together. Again, a major long-term project. And it is just absolutely, unique that within an hour of a true world city, you can buy a condo like this, 300 grand type bracket, pull the curtains, true beachfront, very special community. And I mean, true beachfront, Ciaran, 300 grand. I mean, you're just not going to find that elsewhere. And you literally are so close to Panama City here that if you follow the beach here is at Chame. If you follow it around to Punta Chame, which is the point that looks back at the city, all you can see is just this glimmering high rise. It's one of the most special aspects of Panama City because this is a kite surfing point, and you've got all these kite surfers and then just the shimmering high rise of Panama City. But how the beaches in Panama work, this is important about the geography here, is that from Punta Chame back to the city, it's bay, like it's the Bay of Panama.
Yeah.
So from Punta Chame back, you've got muddy beaches, there's not a lot of sand. But from Punta Chame around that point and along to Caracol, that's where you have the best beaches on this stretch. And that's where this condo is. And I don't know what more to say than open your curtains and be on the beach. 300 grand.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible. Well, I think and as well, like you were kind of highlighting this community and this development, like back 2016, 2017, you were talking about it and recommending condos there when prices were sub 200,000. Like now, what's interesting about it now is that like it's a big inflection point moment there. Like Margaritaville are building a big resort there. And it's happening as these kind of things are happening as Panama, which never put any attention on tourism. Panama was always like, we're going to focus on economic growth, the canal, corporations, banking, finance. Now Panama is starting to put some attention on tourism, and you're seeing the results. Tourism numbers up so far this first half of this year, up, I think it was 15, 17%. Panama's starting to break out. It has the natural environments, which you described earlier. It has what Costa Rica has in terms of wildlife, mountains, beaches, Pacific coast, Caribbean coast. It just never really promoted itself in that way. As it starts to do that, put some money into it, like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Panama has what Costa Rica has, which is absolutely amazing, except Panama has the city as well, but it hasn't done the marketing or the branding. And Panama is now getting serious about that. And, when we get together with our lifetime members in Panama City in February, just like we did last year, I mean, everyone is blown away by the level that Panama is at, whether that's the cars on the road. Again, another quirk, which is very interesting, which was very interesting for all our American friends who'll be coming to Panama for the gathering, is about, I think the stat is 32% of new cars sold in Panama now are Chinese. So if you're coming to the gathering from the US, it'll be really quick because you'd see all these cars and you'd say, what, that looks like a Porsche Cayenne, but it's not. It's some kind of premium Chinese SUV brand. So it's really, 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 really quirky. So we're committed we're committed to Panama. And I think, on the big takeaways, we've looked at deals here that, our long-standing members were able to get in on, maybe 5, 7, 9 years ago, and have seen big uplifts and very strong rental yield. But no one should feel disappointed about landing on Panama now, because the next decade looks as promising as the last one did, and Panama has serious legs.
Serious legs, like incredible economy. I have like as a place I have complete confidence in Panama. Everything I see there tells me this place to boom. Like this, it just has such solid economic fundamentals, such potential growth in areas like tourism, incredible destination.
Absolutely, Ciaran, whether that's for lifestyle, rental income, capital appreciation, Panama City is a place you can safely, securely, and confidently plant a flag.
And Roland, if people would like to learn more about Panama, you can click the link on screen and get a Panama buyer's guide, which we prepared. It's kind of a perfect intro to Panama. It'll tell you things about the buying process there, has some information on visas, healthcare, things like that, as well as like some of the markets, communities that we've talked about. So that's free to you. You click the link and grab that it's in the description as well. Ronan, next up on the channel, we're going to talk about, a trend that's happening in Europe. There's these new Rivieras emerging in Europe, and you're going to do a destination deep dive on one of them. Where are we going to be highlighting next?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be looking at the turquoise, perfect waters and pristine sandy beaches of Albania. So this is one to watch. I mean, I think back, you look at a map of Europe's coast, you look at a map of the Adriatic coast, a satellite image at night, and Albania is dark. But yet it's the same pristine, incredible coastlines that we'll see in the Italian Rivieras, Greek Rivieras. It's empty. Opportunity is barreling in that direction.
So yeah, very, very cool place. Italians are retiring there. That should tell you a lot. I thought it was I've seen it, the video run. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. It'll be up on the channel on Thursday. Guys, check it out. Make sure you like and subscribe to get the video. And again, if you'd like to get that Panama report, link in the description. Ronan, great talking to you.
See you, Ciaran. Thanks.